All right, let's continue with Harry's interview here. And again, give me recommendations. I just finished the engagement interview. I'll get to the Netflix series eventually. I don't know if I can put that on YouTube though because of copyright and whatnot. But give me recommendations. Let's continue with this. And thank you for watching.
Then maybe this would have turned out differently. It's hard.
There's a lot to pick up on there, and we will. But let's start at the beginning. And we're going to use chunks of your audiobook, which you read yourself.
Oh, this is going to be
to
entertaining.
help give people, and just to be clear,
this is going to be
there are
fun.
times when you let the narrative run, because it's an extraordinary narrative, and times when
Okay.
I may challenge
He's talking
you
a little
on things
too
that you're
much.
saying later,
All right.
and it begins.
I'll just tell you really quick though, this guy interviewing him, I think he's doing not a great job. Just he's talking too much. He's over explaining. He could have said what he's trying to say in like one or two sentences. Like, all right, we're gonna play a bit of your book and I'm gonna ask you questions about it. Like, he's talking too much. I mean, whatever, he might be flustered or something. To be honest, I don't know much about him. Some of you could comment like who he is, what his background is he a good interviewer, is he not? I do not know. But I think he's messing up a bit there because we're not there to listen to him explain that he's going to ask questions.
With the utterly shattering night that your father comes to sit on your bed in Balmoral.
Dude, shush.
He sat down on the edge of the bed.
Okay.
He put a hand on my knee. Darling boy, Mommy's been in a car crash. I remember thinking, crash? Okay,
Oof.
but she's all right. Yes? I vividly remember that thought flashing through my mind. And I remember waiting patiently for Pop.
You know, no comment on that. I mean, that's a legitimate thing to be extremely upset about and to write about, you know. I mean, that's crazy.
To confirm that indeed Mummy was all right. And
I'll skip that. Honestly, that's, you know, that's genuinely an awful thing to go through, and I'm not gonna, you know, comment on that other than say, you know, that's awful. Let's see.
a lot now. I don't think so. I thought again. Thinking back to when I was 12 years old, sitting in that sunken bed at Balmoral Castle, I took myself back to that moment and tried to remember as much as possible.
You know what? It could be useful. This could be a bit of a baseline because I'm pretty sure he's speaking genuinely and of genuine feeling. So,
my father coming in his dressing gown and sharing that news with me. Only now, as part of writing the book, did I really think about how many hours he'd been away.
you know what's interesting, I'll say? So if you saw the prior part of this, how I was saying a lot of what I was hearing when he was saying, like, we fled the country for our life, he had like this angry resentment to the way he's speaking, and now he doesn't have that. So like he was giving off this just bad vibe, like I said, like setting off alarm bells. Now when he's speaking genuinely about a genuine thing that happened to him that was horrible, like I just feel bad for him. He's not giving off that weird like resentment underneath it. So I think it's a good baseline for maybe how he, you know, more genuine aspect of him, or less selfish, or maybe the way he more was in the past before he's become more and more angry and Meghan Markle like.
And the compassion that I have for him as a parent, having to sit with that for many, many hours, bringing up friends of his, trying to work out how the hell do I break this to my two sons. And I never want to be in that position. Part of the reason why we're here now. I never ever want to be in that position. I don't want history to repeat itself. I do not want to be
Funny enough, I was just finishing up the engagement interview portion, and again, I think that's just like a very false narrative that he has in his head that Meghan put in his head. It's like, okay, the paparazzi took out your mother, took her life, and now they're going to take out my life. Which again, please let me know if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, there were paparazzi following her. I did some research, and obviously it's a tragedy no matter what, but it sounds like her driver might have been on drugs, and it was more so her driver was behaving wrong. Obviously, there's some paparazzi that are like horrendous people who are trying to take photos, after the fact. But to me, and it's still just as, still quite bad, and the driver would be at fault then. But to me, it sounds like it might have been the driver was a bit more at fault than just the being followed by paparazzi. Just they were on drugs. But again, I think now he's got this narrative in his head. Paparazzi took out my mother, and they're going to take out Meghan. And that's what Meghan really focused on him believing, which, it really makes it easy to manipulate him and to blame everything on the paparazzi, right? If you have this group that is literally trying to, take out your wife and your kids and your mother, it's going to be very easy to blame everything on them. That being said, I think paparazzi could be pretty awful many, many times, and a lot of stuff they do is kind of crazy that it's like legal, but, still.
Dad. And I certainly don't want my children to have a life without a mother or a father.
One of the things I found saddest in the book is the way, as I understand it, it kind of begins with your mother's death because you have a problem with the memories before then. Is that right? You've lost them, and that just seems so sad.
Yeah, no, I lost a lot of memories on the other side of this mental wall, which again I think is so relatable for so many people who've experienced loss, especially as a youngster. That inability to be able to drag the memories back over. But I think a lot of it was a defense mechanism.
Funny, because honestly, so much of what he said lately when he's talking about emotions and his pop psychology, he sounds kind of out of it, but this sounds fairly reasonable. And again, I think the difference is where he's coming from his genuine parts, and maybe that would have worked, right? Maybe if he'd written his book and it's really talking about this, I think he would have accomplished what he says he wanted to accomplish, right? He's saying oh, there's all these stories about me and I wanted the real story about me, which I think was overly aggressive, overly resentful, and blaming of others. But still, if he wanted to have people understand him and get his story out there, if his book was not about, oh, William did this and my father didn't do that, if it was about stuff like that, I think that would have just gained him a huge amount of compassion, and it really would have made people understand him. So he obviously went the wrong way with just cutting his whole family out. And also, it's if you lost your mother, that's horrible. But now saying, oh, I've lost my father too because he didn't do something I don't want, is so obtuse, right? Again, him and Meghan, it's we lost our fathers because Meghan's father took photos that they didn't approve of, and Harry's father, I don't know what, back then he was saying that his father wouldn't reconcile, which was not true. Then it's his father won't apologize, just making nonsense up. But it's you'd think maybe he'd have some perspective. There's a big difference between having someone actually taken from you, they're no longer with us, and I'm mad because you said that my wife was no good because she's no good, and now you won't do what I want. So anyways, we'll get back to this soon.